Hello, Wally College family and friends. We are very excited that you all have decided to join us today to learn more about changing the system. My name is Dr. Kiana White, and I serve as an assistant professor of criminal justice, as well as the co-director of the Heman Sweat Center for Social Good and Leadership here at Wiley College. On behalf of my fellow co-director, Dr. Tasha Bradley, and our 17th president, Dr. Herman J. Felton Jr., I would like to welcome you all to our Black History program. During Black History Month, our programs has focused on changing the system. In life, there are many avenues that an individual may take in fulfilling their purpose. Tonight's installment will focus on the journey of a phenomenal woman. Through her story, I hope that you are each inspired to take note of service and take note that your call to action may look very different than those who surround you. Without further ado, I would like to turn it over to one of our Human Sweat scholars, Miss Igel Manuel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Igel Manuel, and today I will be introducing attorney Vonda Bailey. She is a native of Dallas, Texas, where she is the managing partner of the law office of Vonda Bailey PLLC, where she provides legal assistance in family law, which includes child support, child custody, divorce, and adoption. Ms. Bailey received both her bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Texas at Arlington. Mrs. Bailey began her career in the legal field serving as a probation officer in Dallas. It is that Ms. Bailey realized her passion for advocating for others, leading her to not only pursue but earning her Juris Doctorate degree from the Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Houston, Texas. During her legal career, Mrs. Bailey has been known to advocate for others in and out of the courtroom. Mrs. Bailey's dedication to leadership is evident through her various service roles she has performed in the community, such as hosting various of events in which donations for the community are received, sponsoring events for children in the community, and often providing pro bono services to those who have family law related issues. Addition's effort to give back to the community, Mrs. Bailey created the viral show, which airs on YouTube, Support Court with Judge Vonda B, to educate people about child support laws in Texas. Moreover, Mrs. Bailey has received a plethora of recognitions and awards as a result of her philanthropy. Vonda, with another TMSL alum, partnered to create the Bailey Clark Bar Scholarship, which awards financial assistance for expenses relating to the Texas Bar. Furthermore, Vonda holds a leadership position as fundraising chair with the Stonewall Democrats of the Dallas organization. She is also a member of Dallas Bar Organization, Super Laurie's Texas Rising Stars, rated 10 best law firms in Texas by the American Institute of Family Law Attorneys, and she was nominated for the best lawyer under 40 in Dallas. Now introducing attorney Vonda Bailey.
Thank you for that introduction. It was great. You all will have to excuse my voice. I'm on the campaign trail. So I am at the polling locations located throughout all of Dallas County, pretty much all day until 5 o'clock. And well, that's when they close. I just got home maybe 15 minutes or so ago. So I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. We're excited today.
Yes, thank you.
So, Vanda, I guess we'll open it up with you starting off. I know that when I called and I asked you to speak, I want you to speak to the students regarding your now we're dealing with changing the system and how everyone's road to, I guess, their call to justice is different. When we talk like we've been friends, you're a mentor. I know that your journey into the legal field has been different from mine. I've always wanted to be a lawyer, but yours is so different. So I just wanted you to speak to the students regarding your journey, I guess what you started off in your career, what caused you to want to be a lawyer, and in the legal field, the things that you have seen to make you know that it's time to do something different, which is your call to run for judge.
Absolutely. And thank you for that question. First off, I want to acknowledge the name of the center that I am speaking to today, Heman Sweat. That name means a lot to me. Thurgood Marshall, the Thurgood Marshall School of Law, my law school. Heman Sweat is the reason that law school even exists. Just to give people a brief overview, Heman Sweat was an African American man. He applied to the University of Texas at Austin. He was denied admission because he was Black. He filed a lawsuit. The attorney that represented him was the Thurgood Marshall, and they won the lawsuit. And essentially, part of what happened with that lawsuit just put a lot of things into action with the civil rights movement. And that's what essentially gave birth to the Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Houston, Texas. So I encourage you all to make sure that you look into that. Heman Sweat is definitely a pioneer. And that leads me to what I want to let you all know today. A call to action is just what that means. That means that you have to be willing and fearless to stand up against any injustice. I don't care how it looks, I don't care who it involves. Injustice is not just about race, it's not just about white and Black, right? Because we see a lot of calls to action when there's a situation involving a white individual and a Black individual. Headlines go crazy. That's the sexy stuff, right? But what about the injustices that occur every single day? What about the injustices that you see when you see someone being made fun of? You see someone being discriminated against because they may be handicapped. You see someone mistreated in the courtroom. Like, you have to be willing to stand up for this. I graduated as it was stated, I am a native of Dallas. I graduated from David W. Carter High School. Leadership has been something that was always in me. I always wanted to stand up for people. That's just the type of person I was. I didn't like bullies. I didn't like to see people be mistreated, which essentially, brought me to being an attorney. I always wanted to be an attorney ever since I was a little girl. And my journey has been just that in the legal field. After I graduated high school, I went to undergrad, became a probation officer. I didn't get into law school the first time that I applied. I didn't. It was disappointing. It was heartbreaking. It was discouraging because I always wanted to do this, but I didn't quit. I applied again. Guess what? I got denied a second time. I applied the third time. I applied to 13 schools, one of which being the Thurgood Marshall School of Law. I got denied into every single law school except for the Thurgood Marshall School of Law. And frankly, it's the loss of the other schools because I'm making my school look great. I'm doing some great things. Ever since I graduated law school, I literally hit the ground running. I started my own firm with no money. Literally, I didn't have a job. People started reaching out to me. I said, you know what? I knew that I wanted to be an attorney, but I thought that I wanted to practice criminal law. That's not what happened. God put me where He needed me to be, not necessarily where I wanted to be. Family law found me, and I've been practicing family law exclusively for the past 8 years. In that 8 years, I saw a lot of things that I did not like. I saw litigants get mistreated. I saw litigants get talked about. And it wasn't from other attorneys, it was from a judge in particular, mistreating people because they may have dated someone that you dated previously or just silly things, right? There were a number of attorneys that refused to stand up. I stood up. I got in trouble behind it too. And that's another thing I want to tell you. Don't be afraid to get into good trouble. I know you all have heard that before with the late Mr. Lewis. Get into good trouble. When you see something wrong, you call it out. That's what I did. And by trouble, I mean the judge filed a bar grievance against me. For those of you who don't know what a bar grievance is, when you're an attorney, you're governed by the State Bar of Texas for misconduct. The judge filed a complaint against me, pretty much saying I didn't need to be a practicing lawyer. It tore me up. I was pregnant with my daughter. I almost lost my daughter because I was so stressed out behind it. But I prayed to God that if He got me through this, I was going to make sure I stood up for every individual and nobody had to go through what I went through. Because if anybody knows anything about an attorney, we deal with a lot. In addition to our families, we deal with our colleagues that suffer from, suicidal thoughts, mental health disorders, alcoholism. The same thing is going on with these people that we're representing. I refused to sit back and let anybody go through what I went through. I had the courage to speak up. I had the money to fight back. But what about the people that are just like me, that are not lawyers, that don't have the means to do that? Who is going to advocate for them? Vonda Bailey, that's who. So that same judge, I'm running against her right now for judge in Dallas County. And it is a huge sacrifice. I'm walking away from a lot. My law firm makes 3 times as much as what I will be getting paid as a judge, but I'm willing to take a pay cut to change the system. I'm willing to say, you know what? This is what justice looks like. I employ each and every last one of you to take a stand within your own profession, within your own regard, whatever it is, wherever you're at right now in your life, you take a stand. I know that you've heard you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything, right? That is so true. You have to be willing to speak up and stand up for other people. And you have to get this in your head early. Life is not about you. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. Whatever your reason for being here, whatever your assignment is, you need to understand it and you need to execute it, whether you like it or not. It wasn't an easy decision for me to decide to run for judge. I have a family, I have a husband, I have kids. We had to move in order to live in the county. I had to unroot them. There was so many things that I had to do. But when you take a stand and you're trying to make a change, you have to take it full speed ahead. You can't piecemeal it. You can't say, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm just going to hold off on that. No, you execute the assignment and you do whatever it is that it takes because we are dependent on you. You are the future. You are the change that we need. We talk all the time about voting, getting people to the polls, getting people to the polls. Well, let's back it up a little bit. Let's educate people on why they need to vote. Let's talk about the changes that need to take place in the courtroom. Because believe it or not, these local elections, they impact us directly more on any scale than any presidential election. That presidential election is real sexy. We pull out hundreds and thousands of people for that. But we can't get people to show up at these polls during a local election. We have to ask ourselves why. And I took responsibility. I don't ever blame anything on other people because being part of the change means you have to take accountability for your failure to act. So I took accountability and said, you know what? It was my failure to act. The first time the judge did something, I didn't pull her to the carpet. The first time I didn't speak out. The first time I allowed an injustice to occur in front of me and I did nothing about it. That was a hard pill to swallow because it's like, Vonda, you got to take blame for some of this, not necessarily all of it. We have to educate people. We have to explain to people what family court involves. Child custody, divorce, child support. These are issues that are played in minority communities. Why aren't we knocking on doors talking about this? Why aren't we passing out flyers for that? Why aren't we going live? Why aren't we going viral on social media with these type of things? Somebody has to be willing to stand up, and that's Vonda Bailey. I'm going to be a part of the change now, later, forever. Because when I leave this earth, I want it to be known that Vonda Bailey was a movement. She did this, she did that. She's going to be a part of the change. She's implementing things that should have already been in the courthouse a long time ago. And that's where it starts. It starts with me. I'm one person. But when somebody else see me doing, guess what it's going to do? It's a domino effect. The next person is going to do it. The next person is going to do it. The next person is going to do it. At Thurgood Marshall School of Law, our motto is protect it, improve it, and pass it on. That it is up to you. You determine what that it is. If it's legacy, you protect it, you improve it, you pass it on. If it's integrity, you protect it, you improve it, you pass it on. So that's my message to you all. Protect it, improve it, and pass it on. And your it is not going to look like everybody else's, and that's okay. But whatever your it is, you have to be willing to make the sacrifice to make sure that you do exactly what you're supposed to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to our students. Now, I do want to open it up for questions. If you are joining in with us on Facebook, Instagram, you have a question, please put it in the chat box and we'll make sure to answer that. I know that Miss Manuel had a couple of questions for you, and then we'll just do a conversational style, okay?
Sure.
Yes, I loved it very well. You meant what you said. You standing by something, and it is very important for a black female to always stand for something because that shows how very strong we are. Do I do admire that? My first question is: through many obstacles you've come across, what has kept you motivated to stay in this field?
It's an excellent question. I would have to say the first thing is faith. Whatever I do is faith based. That's just the type of person I am. I'm always, I'm out beyond faith. I'm always motivated to do the right thing. I've always been motivated to help other people. My family, of course, motivates me. But let me expound on the helping people part. I am probably the most frugal person you will ever lay eyes on. I have lock boxes on my thermostats because I want my air conditioning bill to stay a certain amount. I don't allow certain things in my house, all these lights on, all that. Turn that lights off. I want to make sure my bills stay low. Why do I do that? The reason I do that is because if I am living this lavish lifestyle, not caring about what money is going out of my house, that's less I have to give back to other people. So I live a very, very minimum basic lifestyle to make sure that I have the finances and the resources to pour back into my community. Every single year, we give that scholarship to 3 law students. I've been a law student, so I know the struggle, you know? So if that is my contribution, that's what keeps me motivated. This year, now with that scholarship, the fourth year, $50,000, over $50,000 in scholarships. That motivates me to keep going. Another thing that motivates me is when people that I have helped in the courtroom come back and tell me how I impacted their life positively. Even when I got on them for doing something they had no business doing, they came back and said, you know what, Miss Bailey, I appreciate that. You're the first person in my life that ever said that. In one regard, it's sad to hear it, but in another, it's a good thing because regardless if when somebody get it, the point is you want them to get it. So those are the things that motivate me, being able to help other people, my kids. Oh my gosh, especially a 2-year-old, she keep me so busy. And my 12-year-old keep me busy. Just being a servant, it is very motivating just to get up in the morning and say, how can I make somebody's life better? Whether it's paying for their beverage at Starbucks, or if I'm in the line to get some lunch, I'll say, get the couple of cars behind me. It just always motivates me and makes me feel good as a person to give back.
Okay, I like that. That's really good. I do see what you're saying. I personally feel that I'm a baby and I have a lot of growing to do. but I'm a warrior. I don't have a problem with putting up a fight for what I want. So your message really is inspiring. So I feel as though, even though you're basically an OG in this in this time period that you have been serving, I need somebody like you to look up to, so that way I could take these steps along. I don't want to be an attorney, but however, I do want to be a social worker. Regardless, it's two different career fields, but I still have to put up a fight, because I still have to, in my personal field, the reason why I want to be a social worker is because there are a lot of children who are being treated wrong. They don't deserve it. I don't have a specific field. I want to be a social worker. I want to be a family counselor. I want to be, help adoption court, things like that. Like wherever I can get into that in particular experience, that's where I want to put up my good fight. I feel like that is where I belong. Another question that I have is, what has been the toughest battle throughout your experience? Like, what is something that you would consider, like, he'll never put nothing on you that you can't handle, but it was just that toughest battle for you, that it was just like, whoa, like, what do you think that you would say was your toughest battle?
Honestly, my toughest battle was being obedient on this assignment to run for judge. I have to be honest with you. I did not want to do it initially. I did not want to do it, because what happens is when we go through life and we feel like we done figured life out, we get comfortable, right? We get extremely comfortable. We get complacent. That grievance shook my world. It shook me, but it was a test to see, was I going to be obedient. I had just bought a new house in an entirely different county, and I was already getting ready to buy another house in order to run for this position. I know how many people would be willing to make that sacrifice. That house was only, it wasn't even 2 years old yet that I had just bought. And the one we're in, we've been in it 2 years now. That's a huge thing to do. Like, now that I'm talking about it, wrapping my mind around it is crazy. But when you have been called, not when you want to be called, when somebody asks you to do something, when you have been called by God to do something, you have to follow through with it. It's not a matter if you want to or not, you have to do it. That was the hardest thing for me, because I'm like, I was getting ready to expand my firm. I had all of these ideas and plans, and I took a pivot. But it was the best decision that I made, because, as I stated to you previously, this isn't about me. This is about you. This is about Miss White. This is about everybody who's watching this, to make sure that justice happens, and it happens according to what is fair and what the law says. And in order to do that, you have to be willing to step outside of your comfort zone. That's not easy. It was extremely difficult. But I employ you. First of all, I applaud you for going into social work, because social work is not an easy task. You literally are managing other people's issues and situations, but it is going to teach you some things about yourself. The best advice that I can give you, because it is going to be difficult, always be compassionate. Always. Because the people that are dealing with some of the issues you're going to come across, you have never been in that situation, and you may never be in that situation. So things that you hear that's like, what? Like, don't have that reaction. Come from a place of love, showing empathy, because you will always get people when you come from that place. Because if your response is, the immediate feeling of that person is that you're judging them. Although you cannot relate personally, you can empathize. Empathy goes a long way. And in my opinion, when you're honest, you true to yourself, you show compassion for people, and you're able to be empathetic, you can get through any difficult situation. But you have to be willing to do it.
Okay. I do want to add in, Miss Manuel. We were talking prior to us start having this event, and in your field, you deal in family law, so you see a lot of divorce, you see a lot of adoption, you see kids go through some things. So I guess she had a question regarding how do you separate that? How do you find the balance? Because like you said, like you do see a lot of things. You do see a lot of things that are tear jerkers. You see a lot of things that are unimaginable. So you think until you're in the position to have to help people through these situations. So, how do you maintain your sanity, and how do you make sure that you are able to give the next individual the justice that they so deserve, or advocate? How do you advocate?
Thank you. First thing I do is pray. I mean, prayer gets me through a lot of the day. It really does. Because you're not going to know the answer. You're just not. Even when you think you know it, you're going to second guess yourself. But you have to ask for guidance, prayer, and it never fails. Somebody will call me that's like a mentor or something, and I'm able to bounce that idea off of them, and I'm able to push through it. But like I said, being compassionate and showing empathy really, really gets me through working through a lot of these cases. And some of them are tear jerkers. I've came home and cried a number of times, or even if I didn't cry, I would drive home angry. Like, oh, I can't believe that happened to them. And oh, I can't believe they're the ones that did it. And then I instantly have to remind myself, Vonda, this is not your situation. You cannot take on these feelings because just like an advocate in the courtroom is no different from a social worker. You have to be able to help these people. If you take on the feelings that they have, you are no longer an advocate. You're no longer a social worker. You're now a party to this chaos. You can never allow yourself to be that. So the best thing to do is to find a balance to where you do self-care. Self-care is extremely important, whatever that looks like. Prayer, like I said, I pray, meditate, work out. Um, Definitely, if you have a mentor or something like that, reach out to them, ask for guidance, because I mean, you're as much as well as you may be versed in something, you're not going to know the answer to every single problem.
Mhm.
And you have to be willing to pull yourself away from it. That's why those things to focus on your mental health are so important. You're human, you're going to get emotional. You see families being broken apart and children being ripped from parents and have to go to foster care and possibly get adopted. That's a hard situation. But the way you keep yourself sane is how you feed your brain. How are you taking care of you?
Okay.
Right. I feel like that's something like as I'm doing my internships and things like that, I feel like wow, like listening to their stories, like this is where I need to be, but I gotta toughen up. Like I feel what you feel, but I can't show you that I want to break down because that's how I feel. But I'm gonna do it in some way to help you and cry later alone because that's how I feel because that's unjust. So it's just something that I'm being true to myself about that I know that I do have feelings and I need to work on that. But other than that, I'm excited about this journey. I'm excited to know that there's somebody out there fighting the good fight. And it's just always amazing to hear other people's stories who's way older that has like done it for a while, things like that. So I really do appreciate that.
Okay. I
You
have
know, I
another.
want to add something to that. Don't allow who you are to go out the window because of your profession. Those good character traits about yourself, bring it into your profession. It needs it.
Hmm.
So if you are a person that likes to, I mean, you pick it. If you're an outgoing person and you love to laugh, you love to joke, still still be that person. You just have to time it, right? You have to know that not every situation is a joking, a laughing situation. But there will be times where you will know that somebody needs your humor. Somebody needs you to make them laugh. That may be the very thing they need to talk them off the cliff. And you were there to be their buffer in that intervention. If you're a person that like to encourage people through scripture, and tell people the story of, like, I love the story of Job. And the older I've gotten, when I was younger, I liked the story of Job for a different reason than I did now. I like the story of Job because I was like, man, he lost everything and got it back tenfold. The older I am, I don't see it like that anymore. I love the story of Job because through every situation he went through, God kept him. He held on to him. He never let him go. So whatever it takes that can help you relate to people, use it. I can assure you, somebody needs a good word.
Okay, we have a question coming in. What can be done to help people before they get in court?
Thank you, Darren Ashley. That is a great question. It really depends on the situation. So, if you're talking about specifically children going through a divorce or something like that, I encourage people to get counseling for that child and family counseling. I believe it is imperative because you cannot reunify a family without working through issues. The best person to do that is somebody who is completely neutral to your situation. Some people use their preacher. Some people like to go to someone that they know that may not necessarily be a counselor, but somebody they can trust. I don't care who it is. You need to be able to talk to somebody. I think a lot of things take place badly in the courtroom because nobody does the work on the front end to try to see how they can work through it before you get in court. Counseling is one thing I mentioned. Mediation is another one. A lot of these situations that get to me, tell people the truth. You can pay me $10,000 to handle that, but you can really do mediation and do this on your own. Oh, I didn't know that. And then they go to mediation. It's like, man, Vonda, we got that settled in the same day. You can. But a lot of attorneys aren't like me. Some will just take the money and say, okay, we're going to draw this out and all that. That ain't the type of person I am. I could care less about blowing people's money. You know why? Because taking money from you, knowing that I can give you a solution that's better for your situation, push your kids in a position where they can't participate in certain activities because their parents don't have the money. I don't wipe them out. They can't pay their mortgage because I've wiped them out. They can't put food on the table. They can't do a lot of the things that they need in order to better their family because I've wiped them out. You have to be willing to give people options up front. And that's what I do. I don't like to see people go to court, honestly. I mean, I practice family court, but I'm married. My parents have been married my entire life. I don't like divorces. Will I handle it? Yes, because that's what I'm employed to do. But I don't like it. So I always encourage people to work it out. Do everything you can do. Court is a last resort, not a first. When stuff goes wrong, you don't fly to court. It's when you try this, and this, and none of that's working that you end up in court. So employ all resources before you end up in court. I remember when my son had gotten in trouble, I think he was like in the second grade or something. I took him to court with me. A friend of mine is a criminal judge. And I asked her to let him see the inside of the holdover. The holdover is a door in the criminal courthouse that you open and it leads to the jail cells. I asked her to open it so my son could see the inside of that. I needed him to see that because I wanted him to understand at a very young age, if you make bad decisions, this is where you will end up. And people can say what they want about scare tactics. They got a show on TV called Scare Straight. Do y'all know after My son went and saw that holdover cell. That's one of his favorite shows. And he'll talk and say, Mama, them kids getting in trouble. Mama, they did this. I am never doing that. It makes a difference. We have to save our children. We have to save families. The only way you can do that is do the groundwork up front to keep it out of court. Because once it goes in court, it's no longer in your control. At least before court, you still have some sort of control over it.
Okay.
You know, I definitely agree with that simply because growing up, I would have preferred that. Like getting broke down what was about to happen instead of me being the oldest sibling just being told, you know, everything is not going good right now, but nothing is going to change. I know my parents love me deeply, but that wasn't the truth. Our lives completely changed. So I feel like before we went to court through this process, I needed to know what exactly was about to happen. I understand that they were young, and I understand that they didn't know themselves what was about to happen, but they was just making a decision what they thought was going to be best for us and our family, which is 100% understandable. It is understandable. But however, it could have saved a lot of confusion, a lot of, things like that to make me wonder what's going on when it could have been discussed before the process was already complete. So I feel like that's something that I'm really big on, like somebody just knowing, how to communicate with their children so that they know these type of things.
And first off, thank you for sharing that because that takes a lot of courage within itself. Too often, we don't want to let people know our scars, our war wounds, some of the things that happen to us. But always share your testimony because somebody is going to come across this and they are going to be willing to share their testimony, knowing that it not only empowers you by sharing it, it empowers somebody else by listening. You just bless somebody's life with sharing that. Somebody is looking at this saying, you know what? I'm getting ready to go through a divorce. I want to make sure that my child sits down and understands what's getting ready to happen. Because believe it or not, we have a lot of young people. And when I say young, I'm talking about they're starting around the age of 13 and going through age of 30. That is super young. Suicide is an epidemic. It is at its highest ever. People are taking their lives. You think about some of the traumatic things that people have gone through in their lives. They're 30 years old now. They take their life. They're still coping with the trauma of that divorce that they had to watch their parents go through. They're still coping with child custody court and child support and hearing one parent alienate the other. We never stop to think about how that impacts people later on in their lives, which is why I strongly encourage counseling up front because it sets the stage of what's to be expected. It gives the child and the parents an opportunity to work through the issues to find solutions. Because the truth of the matter is, nobody knows your family better than you. Nobody should be able to say what is in the best interest of your child better than you. You leave that up to an individual based on what they hear. It could be the right decision, it could be the wrong decision, but you won't know until something traumatic happens. I don't want to see that. So I'm an advocate of capturing that early and working it out. Whatever it is that you have to do, work it out on the front end.
Right, I definitely agree with that. And I honestly feel as though when people speak up to say how they feel, it's a better process. Like throughout years, I've felt like it was our fault and things of that nature. But as I've grown up, I've let a lot of selfishness go, as if like my parents moving on, I had a lot of selfishness towards them because I was so stubborn on the fact that I believe our family was still supposed to be together. But as I've grown up and matured, I I love how my mom is being loved. I absolutely don't hate the fact that she did what she had to do simply because I love how things turned out to be. Even though I didn't understand at the time, I'm perfectly fine now because I I adore the fact that you didn't stay in a situation of the strength of your children because your children turned out to be perfectly fine. Like I'm the oldest, and I let my younger siblings know, like, hey, you don't do this because mom did this for us, and like snap because sometimes they don't realize because they were so spoiled inside that household thing, that babyfied household. Now they wondering why I used to have this, why I can't have it now. She can't afford it now, so you just gonna have to suck it up. So I allow my siblings to hear these things because if they don't hear it, they're gonna be dumbfounded and allow it to keep happening, and then they're just gonna cycle. So growing up, you just see a growing, you just see a growth when you mature and see the positive on the other side. So I definitely see what you are saying. Like it's amazing hearing it come from somebody else because it's like I already know what you're talking about.
Just tell you, you are going places. You are going to be the best social worker wherever you go. It is going to be a blessing to have you because you are going to be so relatable to the people that you're going to come across. They are going to love you. You're going to excel at your job because a lot of the things that you just spoke about, it is going to make you so relatable to who you're dealing with. And please share your story with them when you feel the plug. And you'll know when the plug comes. You'll be able to put it out there. Tell people what your experience was. They need to hear that you're in college now. You're going to run across a child that is going to be broken, ready to give up because of the things that they've endured in their household. You give them courage, seeing you as a social worker, knowing all of that happened to you, you still persevered and made it through. You are going places.
Thank you. I appreciate you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there? You've done well tonight. Like I'm excited. But every time I talk to you, I leave motivated. Like it's more that I can do. It's more to be done in this world, and I don't mind spreading myself. But I know I need to do everything accordingly so that I can give everybody my best. So, are there any more gems that you would like to drop for our scholars before we get up out of here tonight?
First thing I would say to anybody, the first thing you need to make sure that you are doing, you have to have confidence. You have to be confident in yourself. If you don't believe you, nobody will. If you don't believe in you, nobody will. Whatever it is you want to master, perfect, whatever your dream goal is leaving this earth, if you don't believe that you're capable and that you're competent enough to do it, it will never work. So start there with confidence. Second thing, fear and faith cannot exist in the same space. They just can't. You got to get rid of fear. Fear will keep you from making decisions that you know you need to do in order to change any system that you're dealing with. Fear always does that. I take fear head on. I had no idea what to expect running on this campaign trail, but I knew that I was confident in me and I knew what I had to offer. So I just put it all out there. I don't leave anything up to chance. And that's another thing I'll tell you. Don't leave anything up to chance. Do it. If it feels uncomfortable and it feels like you're second guessing yourself, you're on the right track. Because when you're doing something to change, it is the most uncomfortable feeling ever. If it feel like it's easy for you to walk into it, it's probably not the best decision because you're being complacent. You're following the status quo. There is nothing wrong with being an acquired taste. I'm extremely that person. I'm an acquired taste. People don't know how to take me because the one thing that I'm always going to do when I show up, I'm going to be confident. I'm going to believe in myself. And you better believe that if there is something wrong, I'm going to find out what it is and I'm going to fix it. You have to be willing to walk into a room and know that everybody talking about you, but they talking about you because you doing something different. You are doing something to make a change. Change causes discomfort. People don't like change. They like to do what they've always done because it always worked and it always got them by. But why not do the right thing? Do the right thing and be part of something greater. I'm not leaving this earth as Vonda Bailey, the attorney, or Vonda Bailey, the judge. I'm not leaving this earth like that. I'm leaving this earth as Vonda Bailey, the icon, Vonda Bailey, the legend. These are the things that Vonda Bailey did to make this world better. Yeah, name the street after me because I think you got to wait like 2 years or something after you die for them to name something after you. That's going to be Vonda Bailey. It's not going to be about who I am as a person and the things that are all about me. That's not selfless as at all. That is selfish. I'm far from selfish. I encourage you to not be selfish. Always think about how you are going to leave this earth because what is most important when you pass away on your obituary, there's a start date, a dash, and an end date. That dash is where your selflessness goes. That's where your service goes. That's where you make your mark. That's where you say, I am going to be iconic. Whatever I do, people gonna be talking about this hundreds of years from now. That should be your focus. That is true change.
And with that, I want to say thank you to everyone. Vanda, I want to say, I keep want to call you Judge, but Attorney Bailey, I want to say thank you so much for coming and speaking to our scholars, our family, and our friends here at Wiley College. Mr. Ashley in IT, I want to say thank you so much for being willing to help us and stream all of our events. For everyone for joining in, I want to say thank you all for joining in with us tonight. And I'll go ahead and end the stream at this time. So thank everyone for joining in.
Thank you for having me.